You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
This is episode 167 of Wisdom by Wessa on the Horse Radio Network. I'm Jennifer Hebert.
I'm Nicole.
And this is Sophia Ayala. Welcome to Wisdom by Wessa on the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
Sophia, I heard that the new buyer application for the August show is already available. So where can people find that?
You can start at wesatradeshow.com and then navigate to the attendee page. And then if you're a new buyer, you can just select new buyer application or you click on register. And from there, you will be redirected to the DMC's website. And just to kind of clear up any confusion, yes, the redirect is intentional and it is legitimate. We're using the same registration system as the DMC does, which is why that handoff happens. But we had a couple of questions about it, so I wanted to make sure.
I'm so glad you clarified that because I was really confused last time.
Yes, so we just wanted to make sure that's clear now.
In what other ways does using this registration system benefit Wessa?
So one major benefit is accessibility because the DMC team has worked really hard on translating the application for buyers and also to Spanish, which allows us to better support our growing Spanish-speaking retailer base. So we're really excited about this because it really just helps them kind of get off and running faster and easier, more efficiently. So hopefully this will be a great start for them to a successful time at Wessa.
Yes, very accessible. I love it, and I cannot wait for August.
And this week's guest, yes, we have one. Louis Taubert is the owner of Lou Taubert Ranch Outfitters, a Wyoming-based Western retailer that has become a national destination by blending authenticity, community, and timeless Western values. And I am so pleased to welcome to the show Louis Taubert. He is the president, chief cook, and bottle washer at Lou Taubert Ranch Outfitters in Wyoming. Thanks for coming on the show.
You are welcome, and I am the chief bottle washer, snow cleaner, sweeper, everything that needs to be done.
Snow cleaner. Are you guys currently armpit deep in snow out there?
No, we're not. We need the snow.
Oh, really?
Some of the mountains are getting it, but on plains and high desert, we're pretty dry.
A little dry?
We're hopeful.
Yeah.
Some of that East Coast snow.
Yeah, I think Rhode Island has some that they would like to send your way.
And we would take it, too.
Well, Lou Taubert Ranch Outfitters has been around for a little while, and most recently added to your CV is the store was named one of the best clothing stores in the entire United States, not tack shops, clothing stores, by the New York Times, no less. So tell us a little bit about the store's origin story. When did it start and how did it start?
Okay, first I'll start with that was quite an honor that we received. And I don't know how or why, but we were fortunate enough to be included with some really nice stores in general. I always want to say Western stores, but this was all brick and mortar independent stores around the country. So that's a pretty nice accomplishment. But I tell you, Jennifer, the story starts with my grandfather, C.W. Taubert. He was a young man born in Germany. And as a young man, 15 years old, he had seen the Buffalo Bill Wild West show when it traveled in Europe. And at that time, he just had in his mind he wanted to become a cowboy. So he jumped on a steamship headed for New York. He landed, went through Staten Island, slept on the park benches, and didn't have any money. He worked as a sparring partner.
Oh, wow.
A few bucks. He wasn't a big man, but he was pretty scrappy. And he saved up enough money to get on a prairie schooner headed west. And he ended up in a little town called J.M., Wyoming. and it might have been little, but there was one of the biggest ranches in the United States at the time. It was a Swan Land and Livestock Company, and he cowboyed there for a number of years, and then went to a little town of Fort Laramie, Wyoming. It's not to be confused with Laramie. And if you know your little bit of history, that's where when the migration headed west, the government put up a fort in Fort Laramie. It was along the Platte River, and the railroad ran through there. And he put up not necessarily a Western store. It was his sign on the front in 1919 read C.W. Taubert Hardware and Mercantile. And at that point in time, you sold anything and everything that the rancher, the farmer, anybody in agriculture or pioneers headed west would need. And he did a good job of it. Then my dad worked there as a boy, went to the University of Wyoming and graduated there and went into the service. And upon his getting out of the service, he came to Casper, knowing it had to be a bigger town than what Fort Laramie was. At that time, it was probably just 300 or 400 people. I've often wondered why Casper thrived and Fort Laramie didn't, because the Platte River ran through there, the railroad ran through there. There was a fort in Fort Laramie and also Fort Casper in Casper. But I think the main reason was the energy business. You know, Casper was right in the middle of the state, and that's why it thrived. And Dad got out of the service in about 44, 45, and he came to Casper. He worked for a little lady in a little Western store called Stockman Supply. And at the time, he worked there for about a year, and I think lived in the upstairs of the property. And then he said he wanted to go on his own. And the lady said, "Well, you'll never make it. I'll put you out of business." And he said, "Well, I guess we'll see." And then he moved and rented a little store on the same block that we're located right now in a store. And boy, he liked what he did. He's the best buyer and merchandiser at the time, in my opinion. He had a family of 6 kids, and I believe he knew that he had to grow in order to support them. And because he liked what he did, we grew and grew. He stuck his neck out and bought a big 4-story building that had been vacant for a couple of years. And he did things on his own time, and when he was able to, he didn't just move in and occupy with merchandise 4 floors at the time. He started on the main floor with everything, the men's, the ladies, and the kids. And then as time went on, we have a wonderful basement. Most basements have a small stairwell probably going down, but this, right as you walk in the front doors, it leads you right into a 20-foot wide stairwell going downstairs. And he moved down there. And then his next step was to move up to the 3rd floor. And that at the time was where the children's department is. We maintained 2 elevators, so it was accessible by the stairs or the elevator. And then his last step in the 4-story building, which occupied probably 30,000 square feet, and he moved to 2nd floor, and he moved the nice ladies department. And since then, we have, in 1980, we opened a store in Billings, Montana, and we were there for 38 years, and we had a good business for probably 35 of those 38, and then we kind of figured out that if we want to stay in the game longer, we're going to have to do something. So we closed that store down, and my sister and her significant other moved up to Casper. And then after that, we purchased a building to the east, or actually 2 buildings to the east, and put archways from one department to the other. And then we kind of rearranged the whole system of the store by having just menswear on the main floor. In the basement, we have over, probably $15,000-$20,000 pairs of jeans, and we moved our children's department over there. So it's a nice department. And then we moved, at that time, the ladies is on the second floor, and our tack and saddlery, which we moved the children's to the basement, occupied tack and saddlery. And then the new purchases in property that we had, we expanded and have a boot room, which houses over 10,000 pair of boots. And then the building next to that has our men's and ladies outdoor clothing, and then men's and ladies outdoor footwear. One time we had a mezzanine, and we served, my dad was always liked food, and he opened a little chili parlor upstairs called Uncle Bruno's, named after his uncle in Germany. So as time went on, we expanded, and my dad would really go to the end of the earth for anything, merchandise that nobody else could find or have. And he always said the beauty behind his success was the fact that Western Wear, being a specialty store, was part of his success. Because, as you know, being involved with WISA, Western Wear really doesn't change that much. Maybe what sold 50 years ago probably would sell better today. But your suits don't get double-breasted or triple-breasted or one pleat or two pleats. They're all, a sport coat that I had 20 years ago sells well today. Boots the same way. Things kind of come around. Some of the older styles are back in style. And, if you have the right merchandise, it'll sell. Speaking of our boot department, I've always tell my customers when they come in, we really try to fit boots, not sell them. And that's why we carry, A widths, B widths, Ds, Es, double Es, and triple Es, all the way up to size 17, from 6 to 17. It's, I guess we've learned this process through osmosis, being all involved in the store in one way or another, through the years. I'm the president of Lou Taubert's, but I have 5 other siblings that are involved in the business. Arlene, who had started the billing store, turned that over to Anita. And then after 38 years, we closed that down. Anita came here, and she is a significant buyer and merchandiser. She could go any place and get a job, merchandising any type of store. They just have good taste. And my sister Frida is the office manager, salesperson, buyer. She can do anything that needs to be done, which has to be the case when you have a store this size. Because when we expanded into the new part, we have probably 60,000 square feet. And, she's everywhere that needs to be. And then Brother Robert is a little bit more outdoor oriented. So that's why we put in what we call RW Taubert, more of an outdoor lifestyle type store with footwear and outdoor clothing. But, we really work well together. I think history and people that study businesses say they don't last a second or third generation, but that hadn't been the case here. We work well together, and everybody knows their forte, and that is what's made this business what it is today. Our customers, advertising people come in all the time and they ask, well, who's your customer? We need to get to your customer. Well, our customer is everybody. We have Yellowstone Park here, so we have tourists coming through all the time. We're on the road to that. We have our agricultural people and oil field people that here locally. And we draw customers from all over the United States plus internationally. So and we do that with no internet sales. This is all, I guess I'm of the wrong era. Technology, we still handwrite tickets, have nothing but a cash box. We have had to get a computer to get our invoices and for our accounting system. But, because we don't have all that technology, I think, down the line, somebody could really take this business to the next level, meaning 10 or 20 times the sales volume that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And we do an awful lot. It's supported a family of 6 for a lot of years. But let's see.
So
and that kind of brings us up to the current time.
That brings us to 2026, doesn't it? So It sounds like early on when this whole thing got started, everybody who was involved with the company kept a very open mind on how to continue to evolve, but still say, keep that neighborhood family oriented brick and mortar store alive. What are some of the things you mentioned? The chili parlor that makes me want to go out to Wyoming and have some chili. What are some other things that the company has done over the years that play into making it a destination versus a store where you just go shopping and then you just leave?
Well, I think probably the main thing is to have inventory and have the right inventory. My dad always told me you can't sell from an empty shelf. If you don't have it, they're going to walk out the door and find it. That's probably number one. And customer service. We're not a big box store. We don't have a line of cashiers where they just digitally click the merchandise and you pay for it and on the way. All my employees are good employees and have been with me a long time, and they really try and find out what the customer's needs are and address that. We try and fit things other than sell things. But, we have really something for everybody. Our jean department is second to none. Really, the whole store is. I know you can go around the country and find a bigger boot store, maybe a bigger hat store, maybe a bigger tack store, but a complete Western store, I don't think there's one like this in the country. And people know that when they walk in. We've made changes all along in decor. We've brought walls that were mudded in and drywalled, and we exposed the brick, exposed the ceiling, have new lighting. We still have the old creaky hardwood floors. It takes people back in time, and they see us handwrite the tickets. They really get a kick out of that. They just like it. They can always talk to somebody here. Like I said, it's not a self-service store. Sometimes maybe to a fault. I don't know.
Well, and that's interesting because in the age of big box stores, and big box stores are struggling because we're seeing the trend now that people are going, and this is as a general in retail, people are going towards purchasing online and having the product delivered versus going to the big box store. The reason being, you go to the big box store and you're looking for a 3/16 bolt, and you could put 5,000 steps in trying to find that 3/16 bolt because the store is so big, versus you go online, you type in 3/16 bolt, you get it. So how do you balance being a very large store with a large number of SKUs and a lot of square feet, and yet still give that customer that personal feel? How do you make that balance?
Oh, boy. Again, I guess it goes back to my employees, having good employees, and finding out what their needs and wants are. And that goes back to the merchandise. I mean, you're not going to find this merchandise anyplace. You can buy a hat. I'm not so naive that I don't know a lot of boots and hats are sold on the internet. But my gosh, how many do we get in that we shape? And, you bought the wrong size, guy. I can't stretch it this much. Send it back to where you got it. A pair of boots, maybe they have a high instep. They've been buying the same pair of boots over and over. So they go to the internet and they buy it, and this boot doesn't fit. You may just have to stretch it a little bit on the instep. You might have to widen the ball of the foot a little bit, or the throat. There are so many things that we do that you can't have done by buying online. It's
right.
Right. And our business has increased every year. It's not, they said the internet business would kill us and the box stores would kill us, but, we've done just fine.
Here you are, still chugging along. Well, and you mentioned employees. So when you bring employees in, you mentioned that most of them have been with you for a long time. So when you bring up an employee on, is there some secret sauce training wise that they go through? Is that something that you weed out the ones that aren't going to match your store's personality in the hiring process? What do you think works there? Because you obviously have employees who are effective in keeping the customers coming back, and you also have employees who are dedicated to the company because they've been with you a long time. Where do you think that what are some of the things that have made you successful at getting those good employees and keeping them?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If I was looking for help and I had 20 people lined up in front of me, and I asked how many of them are involved in agriculture in one way or another, whether it's ranching or farming, and 2 people raised their hands, I bet 95% of the time, if I hired those 2 people, I'd be spot on. They're courteous. They know how to work. Western people are just a different breed, and in a good sense. They just know values. They didn't grow up behind a computer or playing games. They grew up working. They know what it's like to get paid for a good day's work, not somebody that sits around and talks on their phone all the time. That would be one. I found in the past, people that are a little bit more mature are the better employees. I have one employee here that's been with me only a couple of years, but she sells more stretched denim jeans than I ever could. She's 85 years old, and she just loves coming to work.
Oh, my gosh, that's awesome.
So I think maturity, the young kids, I know they expect to make a lot of money real quick, but that's, it doesn't happen that way. You got to prove yourself. And they move on, thinking, oh, I can do better than this. I need more money, and maybe they do, and maybe it's good that they left. But, somebody that is more mature and doesn't have maybe kids, likes coming to work every day. Not that it's a job. It's they like what they do and they get paid well.
Yeah, they always say that you want to hire people who want the job, not need the job.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So one final question.
It's hard to compete a lot of times too.
Oh, golly, yeah.
We're in the energy business in this part, and they pay some good dollars.
That's right.
But we have a good 401 profit sharing plan, and that adds about 28% to their base salary every year that's set aside for them after they meet the conditions on my plan. So, I'm really happy to offer that to the employees. It gives them, and they can see that build, and investments are doing well now, so they can see some accumulation. And, the idea behind it was to get them to stay too.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like everything about the Lou Taubert Ranch Outfitters store is about longevity and the long game. Everything from hiring your employees to how you pay your employees to how you set up your store, how you expand your store. So for a newer retailer or a smaller retail store who's kind of stuck, they're getting started, they're feeling a little frustrated. We always talk about no foot, no horse. You have to have a foot first. What is the foot of a good retail store that's going to last a long time? What is it that you need first? Otherwise, nothing else is going to work.
Okay, I'll give you 2 bullet points here. Number 1, you got to work. You can't delegate things. You have to be on the job, especially if you're just starting out. You can't say, I want to go play golf today. You guys run the store. If you want to succeed, you got to be on the floor. You got to be making those sales, because if you don't make the sales, they're not going to have a job, and you're not going to have a job. You'll be gone. And you see that in statistics-wise. For somebody to pass 5 or 6 years in longevity in small business, most of them don't make it. And it's probably because they buy big toys. They see money coming in, they spend it instead of putting it back into the store.
A lot of hard graft.
Yeah. And number 2 is you don't, you have to treat your store as, in my case, another family member. you got to put money back into the store. You can't take out big salaries, and buy big toys. Maybe the money's coming in. You got to invest it back into yourself, back into the business. That's what's going to make you money, is buying merchandise and not letting a person walk out the door because you don't have the right size or what they're looking for. Maybe he couldn't pay this invoice this time. That's because he took his paycheck. But over time that builds. We used to have to borrow from the bank. But if you're in it for the long run and like what you do, pretty soon that you're going to be collecting all that interest that the bank got. Over the years, it's just like in your personal life. The sooner you get rid of debt, the more you build equity in what you have, and that's what we've done by purchasing property and having it paid off, and buying merchandise the right way, and it's not for the weak of mind or body that'll keep you in the retail business, because it isn't easy. We've been in business 107 years, and it still isn't easy. You have to work at it. You have to feel like that customer comes, so you got to make a sale. You don't have to be forceful, but man, you got to find out what he wants, and you got to have the merchandise and then sell it to him, and then go on to the next.
And you keep doing it day after day.
Come back.
Yeah. I think it doesn't matter what career you choose. If you want to be successful at it, you're going to have to work hard, period.
Yeah. It's given to you. Yeah. People say this was given to me, and I said, you're far from wrong.
No, how many
days a week.
How many stories do you hear about the person inherits the business from the parents, and within a generation it's gone.
Yeah. Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You don't want to be the generation that loses it, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. I don't want to be known for that. I tell people that my dad was the smarts behind it, but he gave me a strong back. And Jennifer, I think I'd like to throw one more comment out if I could.
Sure.
You're with WISA, the market.
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you a little bit of history and how long we've been doing this. Most people, I would gather to say that I have been to more markets than any salesman that's been down there. And probably most of the wholesalers or manufacturers, when we were kids, our dad took us, and I don't really recall, but I've been to the markets when the market was at the Albany Hotel.
Oh, wow.
And that was long before the Merchandise Mart in Denver. And then that the market moved from Denver to Dallas, and we have been to more markets in the Western industry, plus others, for all these years. I see in the WISA magazine, they give 20, 30, 40-year kudos to those who have been in the industry that long. But I can honestly say that I have been to more markets, and I would like somebody to refute me. I have probably been to, I'll bet, 60 years worth of markets at WISA.
Wow, that's crazy.
There's many. Yeah, it is. It's, this is just in our blood. We've learned from osmosis, I guess, just growing up in it, shoveling the sidewalk, marking merchandise, sweeping the floors, and it has evolved, but it's all been because of hard work. It's, it didn't come easy to anybody. And like I said before, it's still not easy.
It's still not easy. That's right. And it's still hard work. The floor still needs to be swept.
Know how to work.
There we go. Well, thank you very much, Louis, for spending a little bit of time with us here on the Wisdom by WESA podcast. And congratulations again, being named one of the best clothing stores in the entire United States by the New York Times, and all the success in the world to you guys going forward.
You'll find all of the links from today's episode in the show notes, and make sure to subscribe to the Wisdom by WESA on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, so you never miss the conversations shaping the equine industry.
And a new Wisdom by WESA and or Retail Roundup episode will drop every Thursday. The schedule changed just a little bit, but since you're subscribed, You won't have to worry about it. It will arrive at your phone without any effort on your part.